Thank you all for joining us here today for the Fundica webinar. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to Carol Vautour, and she is with the TD Women in Enterprise, and as well, Nia Pietro Bruno, and she can probably correct her own name as she introduces herself. We're here to discuss how TD helps businesses find government funding by utilizing the Fundica search platform. NLOWE is proud to partner with TD and Fundica to present you this webinar as part of our commitment to supporting women entrepreneurs. As the only provincial organization dedicated exclusively to this mission, we take this role very seriously. We provide programming designed to assist you in starting and growing your business with business advisors available in every region of the province. You'll receive support at every stage of business growth. We wanted to mention a couple things before we get started on some programs that we're offering, and it's our Harvard Manage Mentor program. It's self-guided sessions curated by Harvard and NLOWE. We have a new business beginnings program, and you will learn the essentials of business through online courses guided by NLOWE business advisors. And of course, our annual awards gala that's coming up next week, Friday, October the 18th at St. John's Convention Center. And there's still a few tickets available. It's a fabulous event, so you might want to consider attending that one. At the end of the session today, there's going to be a question period. So you can put your questions in the chat, and you can put them in as we're going along as well, but we probably won't address those actual questions until the end of the webinar. And I'm going to hand it over to Carol here now, who's going to talk about TD Women in Enterprise. So let's get started.
Thanks, Betsy. Good morning, everyone. My name is Carol Vautour. I'm the Regional Manager for Atlantic Canada at TD Women in Enterprise, and I'm very grateful to join this event and to have the opportunity to share a few words. TD is a proud sponsor of organizations like NLOWE that align with our goals in providing resources and access to funding for women-owned and women-led businesses. We're committed to help build strong communities where every person has the tools, resources, and support they need to feel confident in what their future holds. One of these steps is TD has taken to reach this goal is investing in programs and initiatives like Women in Enterprise. Our team at TD Women in Enterprise accredited bankers aim to facilitate the success and growth of women entrepreneurs and women-led businesses, to help remove barriers for women, challenge stereotypes, and help create conditions where gender equity can become a reality. We have over 300 women in enterprise bankers across Canada, and we call them We Bankers. And I'm very proud to say that in Atlantic, we have over 30, and a huge portion of them are based in Newfoundland. So rest assured, our bankers are very involved to remove all of these stereotypes, and we're passionate about your success. So there is power in community, and when women come together, they change the world. So thank you so much for joining us today. We partner with Fundica. And just before, there's no cost to Fundica because of a sponsorship that TD did. So this is an amazing tool. And if you are on LinkedIn, please feel free to reach out to me. I will also be at the gala next week and look forward to meeting a lot of people there. So Nia.
Thank you, Carol. So I'm Nia Pietro Bruno. I'm the customer success lead at Fundica. And basically, like Carol mentioned, Fundica is we're a team that has created a funding search engine that helps small businesses find funding. Our goal is really to democratize access to funding, to improve accessibility to all the amazing programs that are out there, and make sure that every single entrepreneur can find some form of funding that works for them. So as you'll see later on, our platform really pulls together all of the funding programs that are available across North America and then filters out only the interesting ones for the business that's signing up. So in only a few minutes, businesses can access a list of funding that's interesting for them. I'm really happy to be here to be able to share a little bit about our solution, to talk a little bit about funding that is available, and yeah, really connect with these great organizations. Our solution, like Kara said, is free to entrepreneurs because of partnerships with amazing groups like TD. So very excited to be here and to speak with you all. I think I can get into my presentation. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay. You can all see the presentation, is that right?
Yes.
Perfect. So we're looking at accessing grants. And of course, this is presented by TD and Fundica. We already did our little introductions, but really me and Carol are working together to offer these webinars to different groups. To get into it, unfortunately, we can't have, I don't think people can just call out, but maybe I have a little quiz. I'm not sure if I can see the comments, so maybe someone else on the call can look, but if you have ideas for answers, you can write them in the chat. So a little quiz. Do you really know small business? Each year, we have a survey of different entrepreneurs. And so in our 2023 survey, we had over 820 respondents. And we got some really, really great insights into entrepreneurship and the challenges that founders face. So our big question was, what is the biggest challenge for small businesses? So we have managing operations, hiring talent, finding clients, and securing funding. Do you have any ideas in the chat?
Yeah, we're just we got a little problem with the chat.
Oh,
Judy has
okay.
enabled the chat, so she's just working on that there now.
No problem at all. But we can
Okay.
just go into this.
Absolutely.
Basically, based on all of the results that we found, securing funding was by far the biggest challenge for small businesses. 42% selected securing funding. Finding clients, managing operations, and hiring talent, those all came after, but there's still significant issues. We definitely noticed that securing funding is the #1 challenge for small businesses, which is why solutions like ours, we really believe that they can make a difference. And so in securing funding, what is the biggest challenge for these businesses? There's identifying relevant funding, tracking and reporting post after application, assessing the funding needs of the business, or preparing the applications. So now all of these parts of the application process and the funding process are definitely challenging. We found that 45% of our respondents selected identifying relevant funding as the biggest challenge. So that's where Fundica steps in. What we'll be looking at today is the different types, like forms of funding that are available. We'll be looking at how different programs, what different programs are funding, and then we'll go into the funding search engine. So do you really know funding? So there are 5 main types of funding. There are grants. This is essentially free money. It's money that you receive from a group. You don't have to pay it back. And usually these grants are designed to support different specific types of businesses and specific types of projects. So you would apply before costs have been incurred. So before you've spent any of the money, you apply for a grant and you'll get a certain amount for the project that you're working on. An example of this is the Industrial Research Assistance Program. So this is for technical businesses in Canada, but there are tons of different grants, which we'll see when we look at the funding results. Now, tax credits, these are credits on your tax. So this is, you apply after costs have been incurred, and these programs, they're written in tax law. So essentially, if you meet the criteria, you can get these tax credits. So they're really interesting to look at. Sometimes they're available for hiring, sometimes they're available for research. There are a few different types of tax credits that are offered in Canada, but these you would be applying after you've already incurred costs, but they can cover some of the costs for certain types of projects. Now, I'm sure you all are familiar with loans. Loans are available both from the government. The government does offer some loans. There are also private loans. Essentially, it's money that you receive and you have to pay back after a certain repayment period, and with certain amount of interest. And again, like a grant, you would be applying before costs have been incurred, so before you've spent any money on your project. Typically, the government grants will be a little bit easier for very small businesses to access. And once they've grown a little bit, then the private sector grants are a bit easier. They'll have a bit more strict requirements. And so for loans, it's important to really evaluate the cost of the application and the money, and make sure that you're able to take on that risk. Loan guarantees that are offered by the government can help though. So if you're having challenges finding loans, a loan guarantee can be really interesting. It's basically offered by the government to take on some of that risk. So before applying for a loan, it would be interesting to look if there's any loan guarantee programs that are available for you. Finally, equity programs or equity funding can be interesting, especially for larger businesses. And these programs are typically, there's a few different forms of equity. So you might have heard of angel investing or VCs. These are typically with larger businesses that are already established or that have very high growth. There are some other forms of funding like crowdfunding, but we'll really be focusing in this presentation on more of the government funding that's offered. So now that we know the different types of funding programs, we'll have a look at what the government actually funds. I was talking a lot about different types of projects or different types of businesses. These are the main 4 categories of those projects. So our first category that the government funds is workforce. The government offers often wage subsidies for different positions, such as tech positions. This is, for instance, in a company that's doing some sort of research or development. Their tech positions might be covered by a wage subsidy, but there are also lots of programs available for instance, interns that are working at your company. In some cases, up to 70% of the wage can be covered by the government. So these workforce programs are really there to support, to cover wages, essentially. For product development, the government often will fund different research and development initiatives in order to improve and increase innovation in Canada. And often they'll also fund different collaborations with universities. So if a business is doing like a partnership or working with a university, those can often be covered. Now, these essentially workforce and product development. This is our team, our product, but now we're looking at marketing, and this is a broad term. Essentially, this is anything that can help your business grow and expand. So typically the government will fund different marketing initiatives such as out of province or out of country business development opportunities. If anyone is going to conferences, sometimes those can be covered. And then also supporting on the marketing missions in new markets. So this is really helpful when you're trying to grow your business, to get some support on the marketing side and really have the funding that you need to access these different markets. Finally, the government will often fund capital expenditures. So this is any property, plant, or equipment that you need to purchase, and any leasehold improvements. So especially if you're working in certain fields, the equipment that you need can be quite expensive. Often there are programs to support with that. There are also sometimes programs to support with renovations, or in many cases, if you're improving your footprint and trying to adopt green technologies or improve your space, those programs are often accessible. So there are lots of different types of funding. There are also lots of different areas that get funded. How do you determine your funding priorities? What should you be looking for at what point in your company stage? So usually very early on, we always recommend looking for accelerators, because these programs, some offer funding, some don't, but they all offer really great educational service, and will often be able to help you like hammer out any questions that you have about your business, create a really solid business plan, and really get all of the tools that you need to succeed. Next, we usually look at hiring programs so that you can build a strong team right from the start. And then you can train that team with different training programs. If the business is involved in research and development, this is usually when they start working on those projects, and then they can look for funding in those for those projects that they're working on in research and development. And once they have their product, they can move to export. Finally, usually the capital expenditures funding programs are available. They're usually for larger businesses when they're really doing big investments in these types of property or plant investments. So this is our little map of what types of funding you would be looking for at what point in time. But really the bigger question is, overall, when do you look for funding? We usually recommend, first making sure that you have a strong business plan. That's where things like accelerators come in, but of course, entrepreneurs do that themselves. Entrepreneurs are very good at being independent and creating, working on these things. So looking for product market fit, making sure that your product matches the market that you're trying to attract, working on building your team, and often these things come from personal investment. While we do try to connect businesses with programs that offer support for very small businesses, it can sometimes still be challenging to find the amount of funding that they need. So often there is a personal investment involved at the beginning. But once a business has enough of a base to work from, they can start looking for government funding. Now, we usually recommend to look for government funding before looking at private funding, just because it's a little bit cheaper. Often programs offered by the government, they have better repayment periods, or for instance, in the case of grants, you don't need to give back that money. So we usually recommend looking at government funding first, and then moving on to other forms of funding like private loans or angel or VC funding. And for most businesses, angel or VC funding isn't even necessary. So how can you maximize the amounts of funding that you're receiving? First step is to make sure that you're aware of the universe of available funding programs. So that's where Fundica is trying to step in and help you find all of the funding programs that are available. Next, you need to serially evaluate the different funding opportunities that you have. So government funding to banks to VCs, like I showed you in those little sort of maps of what you would be looking for, it's important to evaluate for yourself what the needs of your business are. Next, when you have an idea, it's important to understand the motivations, objectives, and the criteria of the different funders that you're working with, and the specific funding programs that you're interested in. Now, as we'll see on the funding search engine, sometimes, even though we're trying to filter out results, sometimes there can still be a lot of results. And so the next step is super important. Validate the targeted funding sources before applying. It's really important, even with a list of funding, to go through each program and see, does it actually match what I need? Do I fit all of the criteria? And is this program going to help me in the long run? Is it funding a project that I'm actively working on, or am I going to be adjusting the way that my business does work to receive this funding? So it's really important to go through and choose the best programs and really focus your applications only on those programs. So you would be making sure that the application cost, time, and risk are considered when you're comparing different funding of it that's available. Once you're sure that the funding program that you're applying to is interesting for you, it's going to be helpful, it's worth the time that it takes to apply, put together a killer application, put together a killer pitch, especially for government funding. It's usually a combination of when you apply and how well you match the criteria. And so sometimes the programs can be a little bit competitive to receive funding. So it's really important to create a pitch or an application that will like get the funding for you, essentially. So now we'll have a look at the search engine. I've been talking about it a lot, but now we can get into some of the specifics. So through partnership with TD, Fundica is offering our search engine for free for small businesses. Now, how does it work? Basically, through a combination of bots, funders, we have some partners as well, and our great team of funding analysts, we collect, right now we have over 10,000 programs being tracked in our system. So we have grants, tax credits, government loans, and government loan guarantees. We are tracking those types of programs across Canada, and even in the States. And so we have all of these programs, then we apply smart algorithms to make sure that that businesses are only seeing the funding that is relevant for them, and that they're getting comprehensive, up-to-date, and relevancy ranked funding results, so that it's as easy as possible to find funding. Our team is usually doing over 500 updates each week. So our funding programs, we're really trying to make sure that it's always up to date and that you're only seeing programs that are currently available. So here's a link that you can scan to get to the TD Fundica funding portal. I'll be going through, essentially I have a little demo in slides, so I can very quickly go through the sign up process, show you all how it works. And then afterwards we can look at doing a live demo. I think it might be a little challenging to have an example from the group if we're using the chat feature, but we can create a demo account and just see how it looks for a different type of business. So I'll get started. To sign up, essentially you first have to offer some very, very basic information about your business. So we start with postal code. and the year of creation. And these essentially help us situate ourselves. So you're only seeing programs available for your specific region. And on our platform, it's actually down to the municipality. So we have funding on a federal level, on a provincial level, and a municipal level. And so when you enter your postal code, you should be receiving the funding programs that are available for specifically where you're located. The year of creation helps us filter for funding for the size and age of your business, essentially. So I added the postal code and year of creation. So this is a business that started in 2022. Next, you can choose the organization type. So the organization type includes our standard corporation. So for example, the Canadian controlled private corporation. But now we actually also offer funding for cooperatives and not-for-profit organizations. So even as cooperatives and not-for-profits, you can sign up and select the type of organization that you are, so that you're only seeing the funding programs for the type of business or organization. Next, I can select from a list of over 60 industries. So I didn't scroll through the whole thing, but we have a lot of different industries. You can select up to 3. In this case, for instance, a business might be involved in marine technology and the environment. They can select those 2. The important part here is really that you're selecting programs, the ones that best fit your organization. And we usually recommend in this situation, like selecting 2 or 3, but really try to find the ones that best fit. If you choose 3, if you choose 2 and you are looking for a 3rd one, but none of them really match, you can stop at 2, because you don't want to get too many results that aren't relevant. So now you can choose different, you can add different information about the size of your organization, so number of employees and revenue, again, to filter the results. And finally, you can select your controlling shareholders. So this selection basically allows you to identify if any of your controlling shareholders, for instance, your founders, are part of any underrepresented groups in business. So for instance, we might have a founder that's a woman, as all of you are here. And so you would select that. This will actually add more programs that are available for specifically women entrepreneurs. So in this case, we have a woman who is also youth, so under 40. Usually programs have this age range. And that's all of the information that we need about the business to get started. So the next step is just creating the account. If you can add your first name, last name, email, and password to be able to sign back in at a later date and see if there have been any updates to the funding that's available for you. Next, to further filter the results, we have quite a few different options here. And these are less about the business and more about the projects that the business is doing. So for instance, if you're working on exporting, sorry, it's a little loud here. Hopefully you don't hear that. If you're working on exporting, you could identify that. You could also identify if you're buying or leasing, or if you're working on any digital transformation projects, or leasehold improvements, for instance. You can also identify if you're developing new products or modifying products, if you are adopting clean technologies or improving your environmental impact. So there are lots of different options that you can select here, and these will actually bring in more results. And like I was saying before, if, for instance, for workforce programs, if you're looking at workforce programs, it would be important to check the hiring and training section. And so if you're interested in hiring an intern, you can select what level of education and the length of the work term that you're interested in offering. You can also select options for hiring permanent employees to see the programs that are available for wage subsidies for employees. So let's say this business is interested in developing new products or modifying products, and they also are interested in improving, or they're currently trying to improve their environmental impact. I've selected those just so that we can see some programs that are related. So now we get into the funding results. To go back and change the different filters and selections that I made, there are buttons here where you can go back and change those information as needed. There are also different types of funding. So like I mentioned, we have grants, tax credits, loans, and guarantees. You can filter or you can flip through the different types of funding with these little tabs. And so in this profile, you can see that there are 21 programs available, 21 grant programs available, 6 tax credits, 18 loans, and 3 guarantees. We can also favorite an opportunity if it seems interesting, so we can keep track of those programs as when we return to the search engine, and really highlight the programs that are most interesting for us. And tech support goes to Fundica. So if ever you have any issues, you can always reach out to us. So our funding results page will look like this, and there's a list of funding. You can scroll through, you can have a look at different funding. Of course, this is slides. I can't give you the full interactive view just now. But let's say I'm interested in one of the programs. So the research and development program by the provincial government here. If I click on that program, I get a page of information about the program with a description. I get the funding limits right here. So it's very easy to see what the maximum amount of funding is, what the maximum percent of the project gets covered by this program. And then you can also see the eligible expenditures that are covered by the program. Now, it's always important. We do try to include as much relevant information as we can, but sometimes things get missed. And so it's always important to have a look at, sorry. Oh, it's not showing up on this slide, but we have a guidelines and forms section down here with links to the webpage, the official page for this program, with any guidelines that they have. So sometimes they'll have like a PDF with different instructions. They'll have a web page with different information. We'll have a link to that there. We'll also have any links to application forms that you need. And there's also contact information. We also have a contact oh, here it is. We also have a contact information section. And so this is for the person that is actually like the contact person for the specific program. So you don't have to go searching on web pages to try to find who you should contact. And then we actually have a contact box. So directly on our platform, you can send an email to the funder. Now, this is really important in that validation stage where you could send an email with some information about what your business does and say like, hey, I just want to make sure that I am actually eligible. Does this program seem like the right fit? Or maybe there's a funder that offers a bunch of different programs and you're not too sure which one is right. Usually funders are very happy to talk about the different funding that they're offering and make sure that you're accessing the right program. So we always recommend reaching out before you start your application, and this makes it super easy to do that. So that's the end of my presentation, but I think we can do a live demo. I think that would be fun. So as I'm trying to navigate this, oh, here we go. Does anyone have any questions? I went through a lot of information, I know, so.
I'm just looking at the chat there, Nania, and we don't have any questions in it right now. So you can, I think everyone's quite interested in seeing your demo.
Perfect.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that the, what I saw at the end, having direct contact to the person who's
Yes.
with the program. So it makes it, you know, much easier, to get in contact with the right person at the right time and ask the questions. So it's wonderful. I think it's
Definitely.
So for the filters, I will say, usually when we think of filters, it's going to remove certain programs. In this case, filters are more like magnets. So if you don't choose a program specific for women entrepreneur, if you don't tick that box, you're not going to have that in your list to choose from. Another piece of advice that I've received from Fundica in the past, if you have 30 grants, do not make 30 applications. Maybe look at one or two and really do a fabulous job. And sometimes that's where we're going to see consultants partnering to help with that. Because if it's like throwing spaghetti on the wall, it's probably not going to be like what you're looking for from an experience. And there was also feedback from some of these grants, and you can start to share your screen, Nia, if you're ready for that. But sometimes these grants repeat themselves. And one person said the first year it took me an hour to do the application. And then after that, it's 20-minute every year. So there's a lot of great information. My ask, if I can, if you are successful with a grant, like let us know. Because my aim, I'm very passionate about Atlantic Canada, especially on the federal grants and stuff. And if we can have some of the Ottawa money funded back to Atlantic, or like especially Newfoundland via the NLOWE members, that would be amazing.
Definitely. And like you said, there are some programs, like each program is different. Each program is unique. They have different criteria, different application requirements. And so like I said, it's really important to look at each program, choose the best ones only, and only apply to those. Maybe like select 2 from this list and only make the best application for those. But there's also going to be some programs that have much like they take a lot more time to apply to, and some programs are very simple. So often a lot of the hiring programs, just for your information, a lot of the hiring programs, you can finish the applications in like 30 minutes. Some of them are really, really quick. And so it's important to have a look at the funding that's available and make sure that you're not missing out on those sort of easy opportunities. So
Nia, before
yes.
you get started, I just wanted to make one comment. A question we get over and over from women business owners starting or growing businesses are, what grants are out there? And I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding of that word grant. It is for most programs, a grant, women are still required. There's still an investment. There's still a financial investment for generally most programs. A grant will offset some costs, but there's generally not in one program out there that's going to cover off the entire cost. So if you're applying to a program, the one that you had there, 750,000, that would probably require an investment equal to another 750,000. Or if you're applying to CBDC for to have a consultant to do your business plan, and there's a grant out there for that, it still is going to require a financial investment on business owner's part. So I just wanted to say that, to clarify that sometimes that word grant gets used, and I think that is you're going to get fully funded. Okay, so I'll
For sure.
take over.
Yeah, I think even in that program that we were looking at, it covered up to 50% of the project cost. So what that means is that you need to cover the other 50%. And that's why in our little sort of map of businesses, we still look at bootstrapping and putting in your own money, often love money, personal investment, reinvesting revenues, all of those need to continue, even if you're receiving funding, because funding programs usually won't cover the entire cost. So this is our TD Fundica landing page. There's a little bit more information about our platform, about the different funding types, and you also have a link to our funding finder. So if you click on the find funding, you'll get access to the site and you can continue. Now I've already logged in and right now we're using it's a different type of account, but essentially it will let me create a demo account without having to sign in each time. So I'm going to be creating a new profile and I'll just call this so we can keep track of it internally. But it's essentially asking for the same information. So the view that you'll see when you access it from the TD site will be similar to the slides that I just showed you. But we'll just enter some more information here. So does anyone, I've lost the chat again. Does anyone have any maybe industry that you're working in that you'd be interested in looking at funding for? Here we go.
I'm just gonna suggest tourism or accommodations. We have a lot of women in that area.
Sure. For a tourism company, usually what year do you typically see? Are they usually more businesses that are appearing or more established?
2015.
Perfect. And I'll go ahead and select tourism and heritage. Like I told you, we have a lot of different industries to choose from, so it's quite a long list. We try to cover everything. If you're having a hard time finding a industry that really fits your business, try to choose the one that's the best match. If you feel like we're really missing a section too, you can always reach out to us. We're constantly trying to improve this and optimize it for our users. So if you feel like there's an industry that's missing or you aren't sure if it fits into one of these categories, you can let us know. I'll select number of full-time employees. Is this for a specific, so Betsy, is this for a specific business that you have in mind?
Panelist, one of the participants here today, Marika Gal, she's here and she's in the tourism sector. So I'm gonna go, and based on her business, I'm gonna go 6 to 50 employees.
Perfect. And revenues approximate range?
Let's go 150 to 500.
Perfect. And as you can see in this selection, this applies also for the number of employees, but we really try to cover programs that are available for very small businesses. So for instance, founder only or co-founders only, to very large businesses. So in this case, our highest range is over 500 employees. And it's the same thing for revenues. We have programs for pre-product or pre-revenue businesses and all the way to over 50 million. So we try to offer a big range. We'll go ahead with this. It's sort of in the middle of our range, and I'll continue. Now we have some funding results. And I'm just going to go into our secondary filters. Like I said, more like magnets. We're going to select from these options. So I'm going to say women. Are there any other categories or groups that might be represented?
Youth.
Youth, perfect.
And is rural in here? Yeah, rural.
Rural area.
Yep.
Perfect. Are there any other types of projects that this business might be working on?
Sustainable development.
Would it be like maybe improving social impact or improving environmental impact? Social impact?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, Perfect.
And even training employees, throw that one in.
Nice. So I'll click done and we'll see what we get. So if you remember before we had 10 grants, now we have 14. So 4 grants have been added because we added those selections. So we have a couple different programs. They're on the federal level. And then we also have some on the provincial level. And let's see if we have any municipal programs. Maybe not in this list, but sometimes we'll even have them for a specific municipality. So here's the list of grants that we have. There's also 4 tax credits that are showing up, and 19 loans and 2 guarantees. So we have a pretty solid list. If I go through and select, so let's see if there's any, oh, we have a tourism growth program in Atlantic Canada. So this could be really interesting for you. I'm gonna go ahead and click it. And this aims to help Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, small and medium-sized businesses, and not-profit organizations in Atlantic Canada provinces. These initiatives, this funds initiatives that develop local tourism products and experiences that position Canada as an all-seasons destination choice for domestic and international travelers. This is a really interesting program. As I see here, we don't see the funding limits on this program. But we do have the application form link. And we do also have, let's see, I think there's a phone number and a contact form. So if I click on the contact form, this seems to be a contact form that's on their site. And they seem to push towards their phone number. So it could be really interesting to look at this program and maybe speak with one of their advisors and see what types of funding they can offer. So I think this is an interesting program. I'm going to add a little heart, and this will let me track this when I enter the profile again. So if I go back, oh, I'm not going to reload the screen, but let's just add the heart here. So when I add the heart, it moves to the top of my page, and then I can also see it in this separate list. So like I had said, like we've been saying a few times, it's important to filter out only the most relevant programs. So maybe this is one of those programs that you would apply to from this list of 14 grants. Now I'll have a look. There's also some wage subsidies that are available that are showing up here. There's also some, so this looks like investment and attraction. These are all offered by the provincial government. Labor market partnership program seems to cover different consulting fees, subcontractor salaries. This might be, let me just have a click and see what these types of programs cover. So in this case, I think this funder maybe just doesn't share the funding limits, which is why we're not seeing them in here. Typically also, we have a team that is actually like looking through each of these programs, trying to find all this missing information. But if ever you have questions, you can click the need support button as well to have a look. So this one seems to be dealing with labor force adjustments or meeting human resources requirements. So this is definitely for, this is another like wage subsidy program that is available. Let's see. So as I mentioned too, the less relevant, we try to keep these results relevancy ranked. So typically the less relevant programs will appear at the bottom and the most relevant ones will appear near the top. That's how we try to keep it, so that it's a little easier for you to navigate. Now let's have a look at tax credits. Maybe there's something interesting here. I haven't seen this one before, the political contributions tax credit. The parties. Interesting. I'm having a look too and learning about different programs that are available. And so we could continue going to, oh, let's see, I think there's a, let's see.
Someone's looking at how to possibly become listed.
Oh, for sure.
Resource. And that's coming from, and I don't know if I would pronounce it. Is that the Nunatsiavut Business Center? I'm not sure if you can see that note.
Let's see. Oh, yes, I do.
And also, there was a comment Marika Gal made earlier about climate adaptation. It would be great to see that for project.
For sure. How about I'll share my email address in the chat. And so if you have any questions about the platform or you want to be listed, you can just email me, and I'll direct you to whoever in our team needs the information to be able to add you to our platform. Yeah.
Nia, I've been directing clients and members, clients for quite some time to the Government of Canada has a business benefits finder,
Yes.
and what you've created under Fundica here is it is it dives down much deeper, makes those connections, is a wonderful resource. And as a business advisor, this is a tool that I will certainly use to help my clients and walk through. So as a business advisor, I'm assuming I could get set up in your under Fundica.
So the way that we have it, the way our partnership works with TD is that this is offered for free for entrepreneurs. So you could always work with an entrepreneur, walk the entrepreneur through the sign up process, and then have them create an account. Yeah, we can always communicate and see if there are other opportunities as well. If you're doing a lot of searches for businesses. But yeah, essentially all of your clients could create an account and see these funding programs. And often, like we've been talking about a lot, it is really important to go through the list, evaluate the different programs. And so that's often where an advisor can really help, is figuring out what the funding goals for the business should be, what type of programs they should be focusing on. And then maybe if there's an application, like offering support. And so even just helping a business owner to go through the process can often be really, really, really helpful and get them sort of started on the right path and have everything that they need to find the funding that's right for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is a wonderful resource.
I'm just
There's
having a look.
also a newsletter when you create a profile. And I
Yes.
think the intent was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nia, is if you put something as a favorite and the deadline is approaching, it would kind of give you a warning or an email just to say you showed interest, just so you know it's going to be expiring soon.
Yeah. Yeah, so there aren't actually any programs that are showing up like that here. But if I click on, let's see if I can find a program that has a deadline. Sometimes we have programs that have no deadline. If there's a program that has a deadline, it will appear here. And so sometimes you'll see in your results, there might be a little red tag that says closing soon. We also have different labels. So like I mentioned a while back, the programs that appear here, they should all be currently open. These are only programs that are currently open. What does this mean? It means that in a few months, there might be new programs that have recently opened. And so when you log back in, you might be seeing different funding results. Some of these programs might have closed in a few months, and so they would have disappeared. We'll have there are tags that say if a program is opening soon, so it isn't currently available, but it will be available in the next month. And then closing soon also means that the deadline is within the next month. So it's important to keep track of those deadlines. Like Ella said, we send a newsletter or like a little alert sort of every month with different funding programs that have popped up and ones that are closing soon. And so this is sort of an ongoing process. You create an account, but it's important to also go back to your account, see if there's any new updates. I saw in the comments that it's a great tool for like checking or reality testing business opportunities for sure. It's really interesting to create a profile if you have an idea in mind, just to see what is available. And even sometimes for different um, for different businesses, let's say you're a very small business, you might sign in and not see that many programs. But if you change if you change the different filters to show that you're a bigger business, these aren't ones that you'll currently be eligible for, but it can be interesting to look ahead and see, okay, in 1 year, what will be available. So yeah, definitely it's a great tool to just sort of research as well. One thing that I would like to note is for the entrepreneur accounts, these filters can only be changed 3 times. That's just because typically they don't change that often. For example, the industry or the number of employees. It would take maybe some time to fall out of this range, and you can change it 3 times. So we hope that it's still like it works. Even if you change it a few times. The purpose is really just to make sure that these are really changing the funding programs that are available. So this is a sort of safety precaution for our team who's doing all this research. But if you have any challenges related to that, if you suddenly get sort of locked out of this section, you can also reach out to us. Because we also do understand that sometimes you select the wrong thing, or you change these settings for the research. You can always let us know. Yeah, let me see. Let's see if there are other comments here. Funding. Yeah, I'm really excited for you all to try this. And so I shared my email. Even let me or Carol know, like, if you have feedback on the tool. I'm always looking for feedback, so you can always reach out to me. If you found a lot of really interesting programs, we'd love to know. If you're having some challenges creating your profile, you can reach out to me. We try to be like, our team is we really want to improve the tool as much as we can. So we're always looking for ways to do that.
Okay, so we got about 3 minutes left, and if anybody has any final question that they want to put in there that we can probably address in the next couple minutes, we can certainly do that. I'll keep my eye on it. Carol, any final comments, or Nia?
The only thing I will add is sometimes when people see that it's a complimentary service, it kind of takes away from the value. And I came across another organization that did something similar, and their fee was about $100 US per month to have access to this information. So it's a
Yeah.
very powerful tool. So I would recommend, and as Nia said, there's 400 to 500 new programs being added from coast to coast every week. So if you go today and you don't go for 6 months, you may lose out on some opportunities.
Absolutely, and that's an excellent point. And if anybody, I know any of the growth advisors across the province, if anybody, is in on a website that says that they can do that for a fee, and you want to check it out and help us, we can help you vet to see if that program, if it's legit, because most of these programs, they're free to access, and you don't have to pay for them
Yeah,
to find
for
out the information. So
sure.
yeah.
And then within, like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 minutes, Nia was able to create a profile and had all of these programs pop up. And to me, if I had to go on all of these individual sites, it would take a lot more than 2 or 3 minutes. And then I would have to have like different filters to say, well, am I eligible for this or not? So it's doing
Yeah,
a lot of work.
for
Okay, so
sure.
1 minute left, and I want to make sure that we don't get kicked out. So thank you very much. This was so informative. I know that my inbox is going to fill up, which is wonderful. And this is recorded, so you'll be able to access this if you want to go back and if there's any questions. And so again, thank you. And for the participants that are still here, consider attending our NLOWE Gala next week. We still have a few tickets left, and Carol is going to be attending, correct? So it's a great opportunity to connect with Carol. And Carol, I'm looking forward next week to having a chit chat with you as well. Okay, so it's 11 o'clock. We're right on time. And if anybody needs to see the recording, it should be on it'll probably take a little while to get the recording up. And if you got any questions, you can certainly reach out to me as well. Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you so much, Betsy and Nia.